go ahead and start the sauce. I'm making my basic sauce. Basically, I'm going to do a marinara sauce. Because with the eggplant, I don't really like using a meat sauce, because the meat will change the taste of the eggplant. I'd rather the eggplant and fresh tomato taste come through. You can just add meat. You know, if I was making lasagna, I'd add meat sauce. I'll probably end up adding some ground beef or sausage because I'm making stuffed shells tomorrow. But first I'll use it for the eggplant. When using dried herbs, they say to unlock all the flavor of a dried herb, you should cook it in fat. The olive oil, like I put in here, is really not a fat content in it. So, besides butter being put, like if you're spaghetti sauce, I do everything I can and do all the tricks of the trade, per se, to prevent my sauce from causing anybody heartburn. One of the tricks is putting butter in it. Well, since butter has a fat content, I'm going to put the butter in the pan with the olive oil and go ahead and then I'll cook the spices in it, which will release all the flavors of the dried herbs. You don't need a lot, just a little bit of butter. It'll help cook your vegetables in it too. Carrot is another way to add a little sweetness to your sauce, and which also cuts down the acidity of the tomatoes. So I always put the carrots in first because they take a little bit longer. I'm making a big pot of sauce, so I would say this is probably about 3 baby carrots. And I just ground them up in the food processor or a chopper. You can do it in your blender or just top it. Well, I'm letting that cook for a minute. I like using the Italian San Marzano or the Italian plum tomatoes. As you know, if you've ever bit into a tomato seed, it has kind of like a bitter taste. Not to say that when you're in a rush that it tastes bad if you just add regular tomatoes to spaghetti sauce. But if you take the extra step and prevent a little bit more bitterness coming, it only means that the sauce might taste a little better. I'm by no means cutting anybody's sauce down. So I buy the Italian peeled tomatoes, or Italian plum tomatoes, and I like to open it up, and it's not necessary to get every seed, but I take out as many seeds as possible. And when you crush the tomatoes up to put in your sauce, don't use like a potato masher, because you can actually break the seeds open that way and it will put that bitter flavor. With all the other great flavors spaghetti sauce has, some people may not even notice it much, but if you don't have it in there, it just tastes a little different. So I've already pre-crushed all the tomatoes. I'm adding them to the big pot because I'll need this big pot of sauce for everything we're using it for. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add, I like putting a little shallot in my sauce too. It just brings a different flavor. Some onions and fresh garlic. I had a little bit of the parsley and garlic and spice thing that I use for the brajol and the meatballs. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in. Now you can add your dry spices. Again, I always do this by look, so let's see. I'm going to say 1. For a large pot of sauce, I'd say about 1.5 tablespoons, or maybe 4 teaspoons, 4 or 5. That was the Italian herb mix. I like using the Cento one. It even has like red pepper flakes in it. And garlic powder, never garlic salt. The tomatoes have a natural salt in them. Some ground black pepper. And let that cook for a little bit to let the veggies cook some, but also to allow the butter to unlock all the flavors in your sauce. So I'm going to let this cook a little bit, and then I'll be back. And now that I've let this cook a while, I wish they had smell-o-vision, but the butter is like unleashed all the dry herbs, and it smells amazing already. I don't know if you could see it very well. So now I like to put tomato paste. I like to cook the tomato paste for a few minutes. It also kind of changes the flavor of it. I love having this tomato paste concentrate. I use it in a lot of things. Before I had all the heartburn problems because of all the medicines I take, I used to add red wine right now and let that simmer for a little while, but that doesn't help the heartburn, so I don't use red wine anymore. But honestly, the other things I add to it now, you don't even miss it. We're going to let the sauce cook for a few minutes. I think I forgot to tell you when I made the brajol and the meatballs. I love this. It's hard to keep fresh basil all the time. I always run out. So I always have this freeze-dried, lightly dried. It's basically like fresh. But I put this in the meatballs. This is basil. I put it in the meatballs and in the brajol. And of course, there's nothing better in sauce than putting some fresh basil in it to brighten up the flavor. I was doing this in a different pan because the other pan would be too high. You wouldn't be able to see it. So I'm just going to dump it in the bigger pan. But I want to get all that flavor from the bottom first. That would make an awesome pizza sauce just like that. Just gonna add all this wonderful flavor to my big sauce of San Marzano tomatoes that have been cooking for a little while, and some fresh tomato puree. I don't put tomato paste in this because that concentrated paste is all you need. But if you take the time to cook it a couple minutes with the vegetables, it really makes a difference. All right. Well, I've never really had a recipe for my sauce that everybody always asks for, but that's it. That's the closest I can get to giving anybody a recipe for it. Basically, oh wait, I forgot something. You just taste it from here and see if it needs some more oregano or more basil. The last heartburn prevention that I have, just adding a little bit of sugar, maybe 3 teaspoons, just to cut down further the acidity of the tomatoes. So I wish you could smell it. It smells awesome, but it'll be more awesome on the food. And so I've never done one of these videos, so you'll have to forgive all the mistakes. My husband just asked me what happened to the meatballs. I have the meatballs, they're done. But as I said, I don't want to put a meat flavor in the sauce until after I do the eggplant parm. So after I layer my eggplant with this sauce, which I don't want to do till it cooks for a while, then I'll throw the meatballs and maybe some ground beef in the sauce and let it cook, to use that meat-based sauce for the stuffed shells we're making tomorrow. So that's what happened to the meatballs.